What is up, guys? Back today with a mock overview. This is my cantina mock. I'm going to walk through all the parts of the building, some of the techniques, and kind of give you some background and history on the build. So, starting off with this section, this was actually a section that I designed in Bricklink Studio Digital Designer. And it's the first time I've ever actually really used the software to design something that I hadn't previously built. And it was really nice because I was able to experiment with a couple different measurements on this arch and a few different, this part usage with these slopes and these kind of modified little 1x1 arch pieces. So it was really nice to be versatile and be able to kind of move things around as I needed. I like how this arch turned out. I like these 1x3 curved tiles and the coining on both corners. I wanted this to feel like a nice little cozy corridor in the city. I need to go back and add a sticker to this white 6x6 tile and maybe flush out the details here a little bit more. You can also see that I've used a different cobblestone pattern here with round tiles and plates versus the typical like 1x1 plates and ingots. I did want to stick a little light in here because when you put this in my city, it kind of leads your eye to the back of the build. And so it's kind of nice just to have a little bit of illumination. And I need to go back and add some details in this little section. I added kind of that little door with the 3 panes, and there's supposed to be a sign above the door. I don't really know what I'll put there. And then just a simple kind of brown window with the black bars. But overall, I try to add details in every little section, even if it's not going to be super visible. And this is kind of an example of that. Turning it around, you can see how, there's kind of the ugly side and how it kind of connects around. If you caught my last mock overview of the pizzeria, you'll know that there's a little archway and kind of tunnel on that side of the build as well. And so that connects directly to this. So it all kind of flows together. And now moving over to the other portion of the ground floor build, a lot of people said this reminded them of Diagon Alley, I think partially because of the brooms, but also just kind of like the dark brown and the archway and everything, to the right. That's not what I had used for inspiration or intended to. I need to put an interior in this one just because it's really visible. I don't usually use these clear doors just because they show off a lot of the interior. And like you guys know, I don't really build interiors. But this part I did also do some designing in Studio just so I could get a sense on like if I wanted to use brown ingots and what kind of tiling I wanted to use here on the bottom, just to have like a little bit of detail. And then moving over to this side, I used the dark tan kind of candle pieces just because it felt like a nice pillar, and I use those little 1x1 round pin pieces to help invert it. I like the texturing here on the gray. It's really simple compared to what I usually do where I'll do like different bricks and plates and tiles. This is just I think it's a 4x8 plate with a bunch of tiles and some kind of curves just to help make it feel worn. And then I put a light above it. I like this light, and I was able to hide the wire pretty well. The problem with these clear minifigure heads is when you take like photos of them, the glare is pretty hard. So I wish I could kind of like dim this. I know there's some products out there to do that with, but I don't know if I'll honestly go back and do it. I like the yellow flowers, or I think it's bright light orange. I don't know though. It works for now, but I don't know. It just feels a little out of place. But overall, I do like this side, and I like the cobblestone pattern. I think it jives pretty well. Again, moving to the back side of the build, you can see some of the structure here. I use these, I think they're 1x9 or 1x12 pillars. Obviously one of them is a little off. What I do is I actually will only have studs attached to this top plate on the far corners. So like that one that's kind of leaning over. On top of that 2x4 brick is just a tile. So it's just there as like support. It's not actually to be clipped in. And so what that does is it makes it a little easier. So when I was setting this, large plate structure on top, you're not having to make sure it clips into every single stud, because that can just get a little bit frustrating at times. And then what I did with the actual dark orange building is I set that on top of some tiles, and then again only clip that into studs in the 4 corners. You can kind of see right there. So that just makes it a little easier when it comes to movement. Now this is probably one of my favorite areas of the build, and partially it's with these steps. I really, I just had this idea in my head, and the nice thing with using Studio is I had none of these pieces on hand. So I was able to really quickly go and build it and make sure, yeah, it worked. And then what I had a lot of fun with was putting these potted plants kind of going up the wall. and they're those minifigure D baskets, and they just sit on top of a stud. There's a little gap in between it because obviously you can't, affix a tile or a plate on top of that. But anyways, I really liked it. I thought it turned out really nicely. It's compact. It's nice to get some elevation in there without being super part intensive. And again, I tried to use the yellow and orange flowers to tie in with the landscaping on the ground floor. I did use larger tiles here for the coining. Usually I'll do like 1x1 and 1x2. Here I have 2x2 and 2x3. I actually like kind of like the fatter look on this building. It just feels a little stout and sturdy, but I think it kind of works. And the white, I think, contrasts nicely with the dark orange. And then obviously you can see I've got some tan, detailing throughout, using some ingots and some headlight bricks on their side, things like that. And then, I've got the light blue and white awning. That's a color you're, kind of see in like little beach communities in Italy. It just feels very Mediterranean. And so I was really happy with that. This white sort of railing and then these orange flowers. So I started designing this shortly after watching season 2 of The White Lotus on HBO, which if you've seen it, it's set in Sicily, and Sicily is known for their oranges. So this just kind of came from that, and I thought it'd be a fun little detail to add. The idea for the statues, kind of like the little busts, actually came to me like a year and a half ago. I just had nowhere to put them in my builds, in my city. I just knew it was something eventually I wanted to do. So I was really happy when I got the opportunity to place those in there. And I think they add a fun little detail to the build, and it's just something different. And I enjoyed, using this curved plate just to help add some like depth to the build, so it's not so one-dimensional. I need to go back and add more minifigures. This is surprisingly one of the few builds that actually has minifigures in, but I'd like to put like a little bench out here and have people sitting and just kind of activate the space a little bit more. But it's really simple because it's just attached with these modified 2x2 tiles with the studs on it, so that way I can attach a minifigure or a bench to it. And it's, again, adding these curved plates to any build just gives a little depth, and like having a balcony I think always adds a special detail. So getting back to the signage and the awning here, I need to go back and add some custom stickers to, again, flush this out, because I do think signage is a big deal. In fact, I'll be doing a video somewhat soon. I kind of need my wife's help on it, but with how to make these custom stickers that you'll see throughout my city. And so that's coming up soon. You can see in the background here this umbrella with these new kind of curved, I can't remember what the dimension is, if they're like a 3x3 curved slope, but obviously I think the light blue, bright light blue, and the white ties in really nicely with the other awning. And then you can see here I also have a little scene just with a Citizen Brick Sopranos minifigure, the guy playing the violin, and then the pizza chef, as well as a little bike. I like to try to just add some of these fun details. One quick note about this umbrella, you can see how I achieved the curve there. I just used that angled bar, and then I turned a 1x1 round brick up on its side, and that gives it a really nice angle. I also got pretty lucky here on this bust because I have the collectible minifigure Judge, and that is his hairpiece. It's kind of an expensive hairpiece, so I think it turned out pretty fun. But yeah, I got lucky on that one because that was already in my collection. So now taking a look at this tan awning, this was a fun one to build. I like the colors, and I tried to build it up on the sides just so that it wasn't totally hollow feeling. And I just think the colors contrast nicely. I wanted it to fit but not be too bright. Obviously I've got some ivy like I have in pretty much all of my builds. Initially this build was supposed to have a little bit more ivy, but in order to fit it kind of within the city, it just felt too heavy, so I took a little bit off. This balcony was kind of a fun one. It was sort of an afterthought because I wasn't initially going to include it here, and then I figured out how to just squeeze it in really tight with the 1x2 rounded tiles, and then attach it again with just a simple 2x2 modified tile to get it to attach to the actual base plate. The white and yellow was just, I have a lot of these slopes on hand, so I thought it would be kind of fun to add. I really did enjoy using sand blue for the shutters. Sand blue I think is such a good looking color because it's just a really nice simple touch, and it's not too bright or too loud. And then obviously I added some potted plants. That middle pot, I actually have kind of taken the plant out intentionally just so that it, I don't know, feels a little more natural. Like someone just left their pot up there and forgot to replant it. I don't know. But yeah, I think the dark brown windows contrast nicely with the orange and the sand blue. And then obviously I'll get into the roof here in a moment, but you can see that's that dark brown color as well. So yeah, just kind of keeping the same theme throughout with the shutters and the different colors. One thing I was really happy about, the detailing on this building right here in the front and actually on all three sides, you can see the 1x2 bricks with the little divot, a little gap, and then the 1x2 plates with the rail. It just fits so perfectly using these 2x3 tiles on the coining and everything. The way it all worked out, I didn't intend for it to look like that, but it is probably one of the most satisfying for me parts of this build, just because it just fits perfectly. And then using those 1x2 rounded dark orange plates, a lot of these bricks came in a large pick-a-brick order I bought obviously a while ago. And so it was really satisfying when all the parts showed up because I knew exactly how to put it all together. So I was able to build it really quickly because, again, I had already designed about half this building digitally. The wooden door, you know, I like it. It feels probably a little ornate. I need to go back and kind of refine it, but you know, for now it works, and I like using the ingots and these little brown kind of triangular slopes. Those were on the pick-a-brick wall, gosh, I don't know, a year or two ago, and so I just loaded up not knowing what I'd use them for, but this turned out to be a pretty good use. You can see I need to go back and dust this build, but overall I think this section's pretty nice. It fits well within the city because this door fits right about level with the top of the staircase that I showed off in my pizzeria MOC. So it all kind of jives pretty naturally. Now moving on to the roof, I absolutely hate building roofs. This one's no exception. I don't like the slope of it. I think it's got too much pitch. I like the overall idea. I think that the dark brown looks really nice. I'm really happy with using the little technique pins with the stud on it to be able to flip it and put the dark brown 1x1 tiles on the edge, so it's all nice and clean. Obviously at the top you can see I've got the reddish brown little clips as well as gold 1x1 modified plates. Those colors need to change. At the time when I built this, I didn't have any other colors on hand, and the reddish brown was as close as I could get. You know, I think it's about 80% there. The idea works, but the execution wasn't totally perfect. As you can see here on the back, I don't have the extra 1x1 bricks, and that's just because that side is not visible in my city, and I just didn't want to go to the trouble of using the pieces. I do like how the silver swirls look at the end of kind of these long, you know, sort of the spine of the roof, but I don't know. Overall, it's okay. I tried to kind of envision that little gray cone as a chimney and the white horn as like the smoke, but it just overall didn't quite hit the mark. But you know, for now, it works. So the overall build, I think, is really cohesive, and this was the first section of elevation in my city, aside from the staircase, but this kind of teed off of it. So overall, super happy with how it turned out. If you guys want to see some videos of the progress of how this got built, definitely go check out the reels on my Instagram. I have quite a few up there, and they're pretty fun. So hope you guys enjoyed today's mock overview. I got a few more coming out soon, and we'll see you next time.